What's going on, Badger fans? Welcome to a special episode of Locked On Badgers. We're talking Mabrey. We're talking Texas high school football with an expert. Just how good is the talent he's playing down there at the high school level? We'll do all that and more in today's Locked On Badgers. Let's go.
You are Locked On Badgers, your daily podcast on the Wisconsin Badgers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, Badger fans? Welcome to another episode of Locked On Badgers, your team every single day. Really do appreciate everybody tuning in. If you listen to the show a lot, I talk a lot about getting people on the show that make us smarter. I think today's guest is going to be one of those people. We're going to bring Taylor Arenz in. Sorry, I mispronounced your name already. Taylor Arenz, sideline host, podcast host, play-by-play talent. Taylor, thank you so much for joining the show.
Of course. Thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be on here.
We talked about it before the show, and I already jacked up your last name. I'm so sorry.
That's okay. It's funny. I am terrible at names too. And funny, being a sideline reporter, I'm always like forensically spelling out people's names because I'm like, I'm trying to get it all right, but I get it totally.
Okay. Thank you for being gracious.
Of
I
course.
want to start here. Mabrey Mettauer, he's a player, obviously committed to Wisconsin quarterback. We talked about him a ton on this show. You were at one of his games. What were the impressions watching him play?
Yeah, I was at one of his games. It was earlier on in the season, and it was against New Caney, and he looked great out there. You could see his confidence was shining out there, and he was just looking good, and his connections with the receivers, and even with his best receiver being out, he was injured that week. He was still making those connections, and you could just tell that he has the dedication, he has motivation, he was shining out there, and he was looking really good.
So you get to see a lot of high school quarterbacks in Texas, obviously, in your job. Where does he kind of stack up on that list?
Yeah. So Texas high school football, if you're not familiar with it, it is huge. The state championship that happens in December is actually the largest high school event ever. And then they have it out in AT&T. So it is a big deal if you're in Texas. Everything's bigger in Texas. And Mabrey, he is up there. He's one of the top quarterbacks out there. So it is a big deal when you are so talented and you are high up on the status ranking in Texas, because there is a lot of good talent out there, and he is one of them, and he is sure making an impression.
One of the things his dad mentioned, because I told you his dad came on the show, and he talked about he's a dual threat guy, right? He's not just a thrower. What did he do? What did he do that stuck out with you in that game? Was he able to get out of the pocket? I know he had a run that was called back due to a penalty. What did he look like on the ground with his legs?
Oh, yeah. It's funny you said that he had that callback and the penalty, because I had him on my podcast and he was like, I was so aggravated. He was like, I worked so hard to get it in and they called it back. He was like, oh, it was so frustrating. But he was able to get the job done. And even he was throwing in the air, but he was telling me that he actually was like preferring routes of throwing. But his coach was like, hey, you got to run it. We got to run the clock down. So he was doing more of running towards the end, but he is definitely a dual threat. And I saw him doing both out there, and it looks really good.
You mentioned having him on your show. That's another reason why I was really excited to get you on here. You talked to Mabrey. What did he come across as a quarterback? Because so many people talk about quarterbacks has to be the leader, the intangible side. What was that like, the conversation?
Oh, my conversation with Mabrey was awesome. Just the professionalism already, because I do a lot of interviews. I do them weekly. I get 4 to 5 athletes usually a week on my podcast. And he showed up on time, which is a huge deal. He was actually early, because you will be surprised. I get a ton of no-shows or just people that don't respond. So his professionalism was fantastic. That was just starting off the bat. But he was so great in his interview. He was not only smart on the field, he's smart off the field too. And he just held himself in such a professional manner. He was talking about his O-line, how they helped him out, and his weapons, his receivers, his backs. He actually called them his dogs. So I thought that was awesome. But he is so humble, and then he's so confident in himself. I think that's the biggest thing in a quarterback. You want someone that's confident and that's going to command the field and really command your offense and take control of it. And that's what he did. He was really focusing on telling his receivers, his backs, his O-line that you got to focus on your job, because if you focus on your job, we'll all come together and mesh together.
That's fantastic stuff. And by the way, I am right there with you. I've had so many no-shows or prospects, high school kids, and they're high school kids. That's how I was as a high school kid.
Right.
But getting someone that shows up on time, and it's such a win. Like, because you never know.
Such a win. But
Yeah.
he comes from a great family. You already know his dad. He has a great family, and I already know that he was raised by a great family. So I think that plays into it too.
Talk to me about, I'm really curious with this because obviously I'm a Wisconsin guy. The people who listen to this show are Wisconsin fans, and we know the great things about Wisconsin. Is there something unusual about a top quarterback leaving Texas going to Wisconsin? Was there kind of a buzz around, oh, that's an interesting move when that happened from the Texas side of it?
In Texas. Well, when I talked to Mabrey, what the deciding factor was, he said that he had a really great connection with y'all's coaches, with Coach Longo and Coach Fickell. He was really committed to them. And I think that for me as a reporter, I didn't find it shocking. There maybe was people that was finding it shocking, but for me, I think you got to do what's best for you. And that's what Mabrey communicated with me, that he thought that this was the best decision for him. And this is how he is going to shine. And this is how he's going to grow into college. So I think that's what is making him great, and also that confidence and being able to have such a difficult decision at such a young age, but know that Wisconsin is the choice for him. So I think he made a great decision.
Well, you mentioned the family, obviously the dad's been on the show. The older brother is an offensive lineman for Oklahoma. It feels like a quarterback just is in a way kind of the leader of the football family as well. And it feels like he is the type of guy that's ready to step into that role from everything we've heard. Is there any concerns that you have after either watching him on the field or talking to him in person, anything that says maybe he needs to get a little better in that area?
For me, I thought he was great, and he had great, on and off the field, he was very smart. He was really dedicated. The passion was there. I think the only concern I would feel, maybe, I don't even know if this is an issue. He said that he was just talking back and forth with his coach, maybe about like a play. He didn't certainly agree with it, but sometimes you got to do what's best for you and just know what's right in that decision. But I think he is going to be a great star in the making, and I can't wait to see what he does.
Yeah, Wisconsin fans can't wait either for it. All right, coming up next with Taylor, we're going to definitely talk about her podcast, where you can find her work, plus the level of competition that Mabrey's playing. We're going to talk about that a little bit next on Locked On Badgers. But first, a quick break for our friends of the show over at LinkedIn. I've talked about this a lot. Taylor would agree with this. You need the right pieces on your team to build a championship contender, to build the right group of people around you. That's what LinkedIn is all about, bringing the right pieces together. They are your facilitator for corporate hires, and they are America's #1 hiring platform for a reason. Screening tools to get rid of the people who have no business walking through your door in the first place. Saves you time, which saves you money. That's what LinkedIn is here for. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Today's episode is also brought to you by our good friends over at FanDuel. FanDuel is America's #1 sports book. It's what I use for all my futures, my parlays, my props. Y'all know I got the Niners, Suns, and Braves. You're probably sick of hearing that, but I'm telling you, see, you can make some money with me on FanDuel. Bet with my teams, bet with my heart, make some money. FanDuel.com. There's a reason they are America's #1 sportsbook and our choice for a sportsbook. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon. Kick off the NFL season with an offer you don't want to miss. FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NFL. All right, let's come back on with Taylor, continue this conversation here. Again, very grateful for the time. I want to give you an opportunity, Taylor, where can people find your podcast about Texas high school football? Where can they find your work?
Yeah, so I have a podcast. It's called Texas High School Football Podcast with Taylor Arenz. You can find it on texashighschoolfootball.com. And there's a page on there. I think you go to media, and then there's a link for our podcast. And you can find all the episodes on there, or you can just type it in on Spotify or Apple. It's on there too.
I love it. And inside that, one of those episodes is going to be the Mabrey Mettauer one. I did get a chance to listen to that one. So great job on the interview. And if Badger fans want to go check that out, it's on that website as well, texashighschoolfootball.com, texashighschoolpodcast.com.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And we'll put that link in the show notes as well. Taylor, one of the things I want to talk about was I don't think people fully realize, everyone who follows football, watches football, has heard the phrase Texas high school football is a big deal. Mm-hmm. I don't know if people fully realize how big of a deal it is, especially at the 6A level where Mabrey's playing.
Yeah, it's a big deal, especially 6A. Some of these stadiums that you go to for these 6A schools are bigger than some college, 2A or 2D schools. So these stadiums are huge just right off the bat. And there's probably at a game at least maybe 5,000 people there. Everyone shows up and it is such a big deal. Like if everyone is doing something on Friday night, if you have a game Friday night, everyone is going to be at the field. And the level of competition is so fierce. And you can tell, especially in those 6A and the 6th division, that it's really these kids are athletes and they really know how to stand out. So it's really hard to explain until you really put yourself in it, because that's when you're like, oh, this is a big deal. Texas high school football is like no other.
Well, in Mabrey's first two games, against some of the best teams in 6A, you're talking teams that are ranked at the top of that 6A poll. I think from the outside, we look at that as Wisconsin fans and we're frustrated maybe that they lost or the numbers weren't great. He's playing against the best of the best in Texas at that point.
Right. So that first game was North Shore. North Shore is a powerhouse. Usually they are on top, or it's a Westlake or Duncanville. Those are your 3 powerhouse schools. They always take the top. So that is fierce competition. Lamar is another huge school that is top ranked, and their talent is stacked. So I talked to Mabrey about those losses and I was like, so how did you learn from those experiences and how did you grow? And he said, I think it was just an opportunity to really see where we needed to improve and work on. And I think that's what they really did as a team. As you can see, that first game after against Duquesne, they did have to pull it out there at the end. They scored at the end with 1 touchdown, but looking at their games and where they are now, they're winning by big numbers.
Yeah, and talk to me about that bounce back game against Duquesne, the game you were at, late win for the Woodlands. What was he like under pressure at the end of that game? Because that's another mark of a great quarterback, is being able to play in the fourth quarter when you need that drive, you need that play.
Yeah, I think he did great under pressure, especially getting that touchdown call back. I think he expressed to me his frustration a little bit, but you didn't see it out there. I would have never known until I asked him after the fact. So I think he really held his head high in that position, because it is stressful to be down to the wire and then trying to pull it out, especially on a Thursday night when they're probably all wanting to leave because they have school tomorrow. But it was high. The energy was in the stadium. So it was really great to see. And I think he did great under pressure. And I didn't see any freak out moments. I just saw him doing his thing and just getting the ball in the end zone.
I love it. This has been awesome. Taylor, thank you so much for joining the show. Really do appreciate it. I think we are smarter because of it, which is always the goal. Any last message for Wisconsin fans? Something else they could look forward to with Mabrey potentially?
Yeah, I think you're getting a star. He already has impressed me so much, and I think he's just going to flourish even more. I think y'all are one lucky school to be getting him. I think he's going to be doing great things. So I'm excited to see what he does out there and how he grows and how he learns. So I appreciate you having me on here, and yeah, thank you so much. It's been so much fun.
No, it was awesome. And we'll drop the link to your show when we drop this show as well, to make sure people go check out Taylor's podcast, specifically the one with Mabrey Mettauer. You can hear the two of them have a conversation. With that, on Wisconsin, we'll talk tomorrow. Taylor, thank you so much for the time.
Thank you again.